We're in the 8th chapter of John's Gospel. We're just walking along through here, looking at the things that Jesus said and the things that he did and reactions of others. And one of the reasons we look at the reactions of others is because we're a lot like them. Some of us are exactly like them. Some of us are a little different. But we can often see ourselves in their reaction. But this is the 8th chapter of the Gospel of John. We're going to look in verses 14 and 15, Jesus' words to the crowd. The Bible says, Jesus answered, "Even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I came from and where I'm going. But you have no idea where I come from or where I'm going. You judge by human standards. I pass judgment on no one." Last week we found ourselves in the temple in Jerusalem, still during the time of the Feast of Tabernacles. Last week they lit the 4 great lamps in the women's courtyard. The people grabbed flaming torches and they danced and they sang to the glory of God. And Jesus stood before the crowd and he said, "I am the light of the world." This week, we're going to look at the reaction and Jesus' response. And I don't know about you, but I'm finding these verses, they catch me more and more. And then by the time I've spent some hours going through resources and concordance and commentaries and word studies and things like this, they just grab a hold of my heart and my spirit. And this passage did that same thing for me today. Here's what I heard. Here's what I read. Jesus is presenting 2 realities in his response. 2 realities that encompasses all of us. We fit in one or the other, and as a result, there's a choice as to which reality we want to find ourselves in. So what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to try to see if we can look at this verse again, see if we can see the 2 realities that he's pointing out, and then you join with me, see which one speaks to your heart. Where are you this morning? As I have to ask myself, where am I this morning? Now, the first one I'm going to call confusion. Confusion. You know what it is to be confused. Jesus is saying there's a group of people that are confused. Listen, in their refusal to even consider Jesus' claim that he was the Messiah, that he was the Son of God, that he was divine, in their utter denial of the possibility that he might be divine, most of the Jews in the crowd refused to listen to him. They closed off their ears and instead they decided to accuse him. And this is what they accused him of. They said, "You are testifying about yourself. That's what you're doing. You're testifying about yourself. And therefore, it's false witness." Now, they made a little bit of leap in logic there, but in their minds, if you told about yourself, you had to be lying. Jesus responded to them and said, "You have no idea." Did you catch that? You have no idea from whence I came or where I'm going. If you listen to those words, what's he telling them? He's saying, you're confused. And you're letting your confusion rule your lives. You're confused. Everything they thought they knew about him wasn't true. It was incorrect. They were ignorant. They who were the people of God, who studied the Word of God, they were ignorant of key spiritual truths, and that was blinding them to the truth. They made a judgment about him. Do you know what the word judgment is supposed to mean? It's supposed to mean a well-informed decision. And what Jesus is saying to them is, you've made a decision without knowing the information. You're not informed at all. Your decision is not a good decision. His words were a strong indictment of them and their choices. What he's saying is, you judge by human standards. You judge by outward appearance. You judge with the wisdom and the knowledge and the judgment that is strictly human. And it's not enough. It's limited. It's superficial. And in the case of Jesus, what he's saying is, it's wrong. It's wrong. When you and I try to use only rational thought, when you and I try to use only that which we can understand, only that which we've experienced, only that which we've read, only that which we've thought, we fall short. We fall short. They lack the knowledge of Jesus' divine origin and of his divine destination. And what Jesus is telling them is, without that knowledge, nothing you know is of value, is of any worth. They lost the truth that was Jesus. The sad thing is, the confusion of the Jews in the courtyard is continuing on today. Across our world, most of our world is in confusion about Jesus. They don't know who he is. They don't know where he came. They don't know where he went. They don't understand because they're trying to do just like the Jews in Jerusalem that day and reason it all out up here. So what Jesus is saying, what you and I want to catch is, he's saying much of the world is in confusion. Their confusion is based upon a lack of knowledge. Their confusion is based upon a lack of openness to spiritual truths. They don't know, and instead of recognizing and admitting that they don't know, they've made a decision. In this case, they looked at Jesus, they judged him. We don't know what you're talking about, so you have to be wrong. Confusion. Confusion. It's really a terrible situation to be in. Are you confused about Jesus? We don't stop there. The second reality is clarity. Clarity. Jesus defended his declaration. Jesus defended who and what he was. Now ask yourself, how could he know what the Jews didn't know? And what Jesus said is, his knowledge came from his origin. Before the world began, before time was in existence, he was with the Father. That ought to give him some knowledge that we don't have. He said his knowledge came from his destination. In a few months, he was going to leave this world and return and be at the right hand of God. That ought to give him some knowledge that you and I don't have. He's saying, this is the source of the knowledge and the clarity that I have. Jesus knew. He knew. There was not the slightest bit of confusion in Jesus' heart and mind. Spiritual truth rests in him. He's not limited to human knowledge like the Jews were. He possesses the absolute clarity that comes from knowing where he came from and where he's going, and therefore who he is. This isn't the only time Jesus said this. In that same Gospel of John that we looked at just a minute ago in the 16th chapter in the 28th verse, Jesus said to them, I come forth from the Father. I am going to the Father. What was he saying? He's saying, I stand with the Father. I speak the words of the Father. The Father and I are in perfect unity. I don't do anything on my own. I do what He tells me to do. I say what He tells me to say. I am one with Him. He is in unity and He is in equality with the Father. And this was the sticking point for the Jews. And it's the sticking point for much of our world today. Jesus knew where He came from, where He was going. He knew what the Jews didn't know, and He was uniquely qualified to testify about that very thing. Why? Because He didn't use human standards and human knowledge to make His decision. Jesus had clarity, and His followers can have clarity also if they'll listen and walk with Him. So here's what Jesus said. He said, you Jews that are rejecting me, you're in confusion, where I'm in clarity. And the reason is I have knowledge that you don't have. In spite of your background and your heritage, you don't understand the spiritual truth that is embodied in me. And with that confusion and that clarity reality, it brings you and me to choice. Which one we're going to choose? Are we going to spend our lives in confusion, wondering about Jesus, denying Jesus, rejecting Jesus? Or are we going to choose Him? Which way are we going to go? Confusion has its origin and is maintained by reliance on human knowledge and human knowledge alone. Here's the reality of what Jesus is telling us. You and I, we're never going to reason our way to God. It's going to take more than our minds. The finite mind that is ours, that is every person's, cannot begin to comprehend the infiniteness that is God found in the person of Jesus Christ. He is too great for our minds to comprehend. So faith is necessary, not just the mind. Nobody ever got to Jesus without faith, because it takes us at the point where human knowledge and human wisdom stops and transports us into the realm of God's divine truth and divine knowledge. Now, faith originates with God. He's the one that gives it. When somebody becomes a believer in Jesus Christ, it's because God has enabled them to have the faith to choose Him. But here's what so many of us forget. We still have to choose that faith. God offers it. God provides it. God enables it. But we have to choose. The Jews of Jesus' day in the temple courtyard were confused, and they clung to that confusion, and they died in that confusion. Many today are in the same situation, confused about Jesus and being unwilling to open themselves up to the truth that is Jesus, to hear He who knows where He came from and where He was going. As He said, I am the light of the world. I'm the Messiah. I'm the Savior. I'm the Son of God. There is no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Jesus said, I am the gate that leads unto life ever after. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. But it's a choice to choose the clarity that Jesus gives, or to stick in the confusion that is the heart and life of most of us. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Standing before the crowd, they rejected Him. Will you join them? He gives to His followers the ability to use faith and to see Him as He really is. We're going to sing a song of invitation. I'm going to stand here at the front. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You choose. If you don't have Jesus Christ in your heart and life, it's very simple to invite him in. All you do is tell him you're sorry for the sins, the wrongs that you've done, that you believe, unlike the crowd in Jerusalem that day, you believe he's the Son of God. And you invite him to come in, take control of your life for all of eternity. It's that simple. If you're here and you've never made that decision, I'm going to invite you to make that decision this morning. If you're here today and you're his child, you've made that decision, then a part of that decision is you said, I give you control of my life. And one of the things his word clearly says is he wants his people involved in his church, because his church is his institution for reaching the rest of the world. If you're here today and you're his child and you don't have a church home, ask him if this is where you belong. If it is, you come this morning. Come be a part of this church as we seek to reach this city and our world for the cause of Jesus Christ. Are you ready? This is a personal decision. Nobody else can make it for you. God gives you the right to make the choice. Are you ready? When we stand in just a moment, if you're ready, if God's speaking to your heart, then you come. Let's stand together as we sing.